dear participants, this session will be taken by Professor Balwinder Singh Dhariwal, who is an associate professor in the EC department at NITTTR Chandigarh. Prior to that, he's had around 20 years of teaching experience at Guru Nanak Dev Engineering College, Ludhiana, an autonomous college. Dr. Dhariwal has an extensive experience in NB-related processes and procedures, and specifically on the topic he will be taking about, that is rubrics. He led a team which developed rubrics at Guru Nanak Engineering College, and those rubrics are currently also being used by various consultants while they take up consultancy jobs for MBA processes in different colleges all over India. He's specializing in antenna design as a researcher. He's guided 2-3 PhD students also, more than 50 MTech students, and he has numerous SCA publications. So now I invite Dr. Dhariwal to take his section.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So, dear participants, in this session, we'll be taking up this very important topic of rubrics. But before I start that topic, so I request the participants to use their display names same as they have used for registering while applying for the STC, because your attendance is automatic. So otherwise, we'll have problem in matching your entry in Google Meet with your that record. Like I'm seeing one name as unknown. So there is one display name in the participant list as unknown. So I request the participant to correct the name. Similarly, I request all the participants to kindly check their display names in the participant list in this Google Meet. And this name should be same as you used for registering while applying for STC. So with this request, now I present my screen. I think screen is visible.
Yes, sir, visible.
Participants, topic of discussion for this session is student assessment using rubrics. And the outline of this discussion is like this. So we'll see what is rubric, why we should use rubric, where we can use rubric, different types of rubrics, how to create rubrics, and finally then certain guidelines about effective use of rubrics, then what are various software tools which we can use, and in the end we'll have discussion on one case study before concluding the session. So as we are behind the schedule, so I will try to make up a little bit fast so that we make up the time. So first thing, what is a rubric? So I suppose many of the participants are already familiar with the term rubric, because most of the participants are have already gone through the NBA accreditation process. So these are certain statements which we can use to define this term rubric. So rubric in simple words can be said as a flexible tool used by an instructor to assess student work. So we instructors or the teachers use this tool. And this tool has a flexibility, and we can assess the student work. This particular tool describes the instructor's performance expectations for an assignment or piece of work. So this is one very important feature of this term rubric, or this tool rubric, that what are the performance expectations. So those are described in the rubric itself. And also there is a set of criteria used for assessing a particular type of work or performance. So what criteria will be used for evaluating that particular student work or assignment? So that is also explicitly described in the rubric. And this outlines some type of criteria for grading and describe how a student might meet that criteria. So not only the performance expectation or the criteria, also in this particular rubric, while designing, we embed the basically description that how a student might meet that criteria, that how the students can meet that criteria, how the different levels can be achieved, as we'll be going through some examples we'll discuss in detail at that point. And it also provides systematic scoring guideline to evaluate students' performance through the use of a detailed description of performance levels. So as we'll see that there are different performance levels, and we'll have detailed descriptions for each level. So which basically helps in providing systematic guidelines for evaluating the students. And so we can say in one line that this rubrics is a guideline for rating student performance through the use of a detailed description of performance levels. So these are the certain definitions of the tool rubric. Now, there is often this question that where we should apply rubrics. So what can be assessed with rubrics? So the main purpose of the rubrics is to assess the performances. So we can use this tool rubric anywhere where we want to assess the performances. And this can be used for any assignment in a course or for any way in which students demonstrate what they have learned. So this may be the process of doing something like physical skills, use of equipment, oral communication, work habits, or it can be the evaluation or assessment of the product that is result of students' work. Like we can have evaluation of or assessment of projects, constructed projects, written essays, themes, reports, term papers, such basically student activities. So we can note here these two terms, that the process and the product. So these are the two different domains. So we can observe while doing something, or we can use this tool rubric after the student has finished his or her work. So this tool can also be used to evaluate teamwork and individual contribution to group tasks. So this is another area where we can effectively use this tool to evaluate different contributions of the individual in groups. Then why we should use rubrics for assessment? So there are many reasons. Some of the important reasons are listed on this slide. So the most important reason is the transparency. Students can understand assignment expectations at a glance. So in the rubrics, as we'll see while discussing certain examples, that we specify what are the different performance levels and how those levels can be achieved. And there are different criteria which are defined, which are used to evaluate the students. So once we share the rubrics with the students, so there will be transparency, and students will be able to understand that these are the expectations which they are desired to be which are desired to be assessed, or those will be the parameters which will be used for assessing the student work. Another reason is that consistency. Same grading process for different sections. So most of the time there is a large number of students which are being evaluated, and sometimes the instructors are also different, or the evaluators are also different. So if we are using the rubric, so there will be consistency in the evaluation, because we are using fixed set of criteria, and all the criteria are described. So those descriptions will be used for evaluating student work. So this will result in more consistency in the evaluation process. Another reason is establishing objectivity. So this creates the sense that an instructor is fair and unbiased. So most of the time students has the grudge with the teachers, the evaluation of the teachers, that teacher is biased or teacher is not fair. But if we are using rubrics, then everything is written in black and white. So there will be a sense of objectivity, so that feeling of unfairness or biasness will be less in students when teachers are using this rubrics for assessment. This also streamlines the process of grading and make grading more efficient. So this results in more efficiency in the evaluation process, and in the time saving will be achieved. Also, it can be used for self-assessment and peer assessment. So students can use this tool to assess their work or the work of their peers. So it will also result in a sense of satisfaction or a sense of creative thinking, that they are able to evaluate the things, and then if they are feeling that they are not meeting certain criteria, then they will try to meet that. So that self-assessment and peer assessment will also be another benefit of this rubrics. Also, we can use rubrics to track student performance. So we can use the rubrics in conjunction with the formative assessments, and then the feedback which we provide after using the rubric. So that will encourage students to think critically by linking assignments with the learning objectives. So where they are having strong point, where they are weak, so those all things they can analyze once we provide the evaluation with the help of rubrics. So there are certain major points which I have highlighted on this screen for students and for teachers separately. So for teachers, we have these 4 major reasons that why we should go for rubrics. And the prompt a criterion reference assessment. So as I described over the previous slides, so the criteria will be used, certain set of criteria will be used. So this will be, the evaluation will be criterion referenced. And this will help the teachers to provide students with detailed and timely feedback. So as the students are evaluated on different criteria, and each criteria is evaluated on different performance levels, so there will be detailed feedback which will be shared after the evaluation with the student. And if this is a part of formative assessment, then that feedback will help the students to improve on the areas where they are lacking behind. Similarly, another point is that this facilitates communication with others involved in scoring. So if multiple evaluators are using the same rubrics, so then there will be consistency, as we discussed over previous slide. So that way, this tool also helps in communication with others evaluators which are evaluating the similar work, so that there is more consistency. Also, this helps to refine teaching methods. So this is very important reason that why we should adopt rubrics, that when everything is written in black and white, so desired performance levels, desired characteristics are written and different criteria are written. So while teaching the students, if the teacher is having that rubric, that ultimately this rubrics will be used. So the teachers will try to align their teaching learning process in such a way that those skills which are expected from the learner, so those are made part of their teaching learning process. So that way, this also helps in refining teaching methods or teaching learning process of the teachers, which is adopted for teaching a particular subject. From students' point of view, so we can highlight that students are able to understand expectations and components of an assignment. So when they are provided with the rubrics before attempting the assignment or the learning task, so they will be knowing that these are the various components and these are expectations. So they become more aware of the things which they are going to learn. So the learning process and progress, that it becomes more aware to the students when the rubrics is provided. And as the feedback is provided, detailed feedback is provided, so they have a chance to improve their areas of weakness. And it also facilitates the self and peer reviews when the rubrics is provided to the students. Now, the rubrics can be categorized on 2 different aspects of their composition. So first aspect is whether the rubrics is general and it could be used with a family of similar tasks, or it is a task specific and only applicable to one assignment. So on the basis of this, the rubrics can be classified as generic rubrics or task specific rubric. Similarly, the rubric, depending upon the criteria, so rubrics are also classified as holistic rubrics and analytic rubrics. So whether we are using one criteria one at a time, or we are using different criteria together. So depending upon that, there are these 2 types: holistic rubrics and analytic rubrics. So the generic rubric can be used across similar performances. So for example, we may have a rubrics which can be used across all communication tasks or problem solving tasks. So we can have that type of generic rubric. So basically, generic rubric presents a big picture approach, as the same rubric is used for multiple performances. So there can be certain elements of subjectivity. So the rubric will not be in much detail because we have to use for multiple tasks. But if we are using task specific, then it can be used only for a single task, so for which it is designed. So this presents a more focused approach. In this case, but we have the problem that we need to design rubrics separately for the different tasks. So depending on the task, we need to modify the rubrics. The most commonly used or the discussed types of the rubrics include holistic rubrics and the analytic rubrics. And these holistic rubric and analytic rubrics further can be of this task-specific type or generic type. So first we'll see what we mean by holistic rubric. So this is a fairly general rubric and it is very easy to use and create. So here we have a single scale with all criteria to be included in the evaluation being considered together. So all the criteria are considered together and it is based on overall judgment of student work. So for example, this is a structure which is shown on the screen. So we have different levels of performances and then there is overall description of those levels. So level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, their descriptions will be there. So this structure will be more clear with the example. So this rubrics will present a holistic rubric will present a whole picture description of what is expected for an assignment. So there may be a single score like 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 based on overall judgment of the evaluator. So in this, the evaluator needs to match entire piece of student work to a single description on the scale. So in this, when we say the scale, so that scale can be represented also by grades. So like A, B, C, D, E, or here can be scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically this left side lists possible grades or the scale. And second column shows a description of what of the expectations for that grade. So if we want to score the student with grade A, so then what should be the expectation, and that will be described in front of A opposite to A, similarly for all different grades. So what would an assignment that earned an A look like versus one that earned a B, and so on. So what is, we have to clearly write the differences between various grades. So when we are assigning, say, A grade, so then what are the expectations, then what are the expectations for B, how these two are different. So those should be clearly described while writing the descriptions of different grades. For example, we can consider this holistic rubric, which is used to evaluate written communication. So here we can see that we are having 4 grades: above average, sufficient, developing, and needs improvement. So these are 4 grades, and each grade is described. So for example, this we can go through this description of above average, the audience. So if the written communication satisfies this description, so the description is the audience is able to easily identify the focus of the work and is engaged by its clear focus and relevant details. Information is presented logically and naturally, and there are no more than 2 mechanical errors or misspelled words to distract the reader. So if we see this description, so different criteria are included in this description. So if we go by first line, so we can see that it talks about the clarity in the written communication. So the audience is able to easily identify the focus of the work and is engaged by its clear focus and relevant details. So this talks about the clarity of the written communication. The second line talks about information is presented logically and naturally. So this line talks about the organization of the written communication. So what type of flow is there? So flow is logical or natural. And similarly, we can see that the third line talks about the grammatical mistakes. So in holistic rubrics, so we have to write single description where we have to include all the criteria. So that description will be overall description of the student work. So that now this description will be used to evaluate the student work. Similarly, so we can go for the second description of second level, sufficient level. So we can see that the lines are similar, but the expectations are somewhat less than the above average. So here we can see, if we compare the first line, the audience is easily able to identify the focus of student work, which is supported by relevant ideas and supporting details. So we can see that this here expectation is somewhat less. So in the first above average, so we are expecting that there is clear focus and relevant detail, and audience is able to easily identify. So similarly, about the organization, in the second level, the expectation is information is presented in a logical manner that is easily followed. So here we are saying that that is naturally followed. Here we are saying that it is easily followed. And in the first description, there is talk of not more than 2 mechanical errors. So here there is written that it is minimal interruption of to the work due to misspellings or mechanical errors. So this way, we need to write descriptions for our levels. Similarly, for developing needs improvement. So we have to write these descriptions. Then these descriptions are used to evaluate the student work. So as this is for written communication, so these descriptions are written according to the expectations which are to be assessed for written communication. So here we can also, this is another example of holistic rubric. So in addition to different grades, we can also have scores. So here we can see that in previous in the leftmost column, we had only those grades, like those levels above average, sufficient. But we can have different grades like A, B, C, D, or scores 1, 2, 3, 4, or also we can have marks assigned to different levels. Like we can have rubrics where this outstanding level may be given marks anything between 90 to 100. Similarly, B can be given as 81 to 99. So we can also include marks if we want that we have to evaluate the marks while using the rubrics. So that way we can have rubrics with different basically scales or marks in leftmost column. Now, what are advantages of this type of rubric? So this type of rubric provides a quick way for an overall evaluation. Because we are going for overall evaluation, we are not applying different criteria separately. So this saves times in developing. So when the rubrics is developed, so it saves times in developing, as well as it saves times by minimizing the number of decisions instructor make. So while using the rubric, so the evaluator or the instructor has to make decision about only one of those 4 or 5 levels. So then it saves times in evaluation also. So here the emphasis is on what the learner is able to demonstrate rather than what she or he cannot do. So using this rubric, so the student work is evaluated on the basis of demonstration, and it can be applied consistently by trained instructors, increasing reliability. So here somewhat experience is required for using this rubric consistently. So if the evaluators are experienced, then it can be consistently applied by the evaluators, and that will increase the reliability. So otherwise, so if the teachers are using these rubrics for the first time, so then there may be certain amount of inconsistency because certain things are not clearly defined. So there is overall evaluation of the student work. Then there are certain disadvantages, like it is very general. So because again, overall description is there, so big, whole picture approach is there, so it is going to be a general in nature. So this does not provide specific feedback for improvement. So students are not able to get specific feedback. So if student work is say not marked as the top level, then student will not be able to get the feedback on the criteria or on the factor on which they are lacking. So that is one major problem of using holistic rubrics. So another important limitation is that when student work is at varying levels, spanning the criteria points, it can be difficult to select the single best description. So this is the one of the major limitations of the holistic rubrics. So for example, the case which we have discussed, holistic rubrics about the written communication. So we have seen that in the description, 3 lines are written. So first line is related to the clarity of the written communication. Second line was related to the flow or the organization of the written communication. And third was the line related to the grammatical error. Now, if the student work is at varying levels, so what that means, the student is good in 2 or 1 of those 3 lines. So there may be, say, in the first line, in the first description, for grammatical errors, so it is written that there are not 2 or more than 2 errors. So if say there is no grammatical error, but the organization is not as logical as it was desired, or we can say the clarity in the written communication is not there, but grammar is okay, then it will be difficult for the instructor whether he should consider that grammatical point for awarding the grade, or it should consider the other criteria, the other description points which has been written. So it becomes very difficult when there are different angles which are involved in that overall description. So it will be difficult for evaluator to classify the student work in one particular level. So these are some of the limitations of holistic rubric. So then where we should use such type of rubrics. So here these are certain suggestions that when there is no correct answer or response to ask a task, so then we can use this type of rubric. So for example, creative work, so we can use this type of rubric. And the focus is on overall quality, proficiency, or understanding of a specific content or skill. So then also we can use this type of rubrics when we want to evaluate on the overall quality, or overall evaluation is desired. And the assessment is summative, for example, at the end of the semester or a major. So because in when we are using holistic rubrics, so we are not providing detailed feedback. So if it is a part of formative assessment, so formative assessments, we know that we are using formative assessments for giving feedback to students on the areas of their weakness or of the strong points, so that they can improve on the areas of weakness. So but if we are using the holistic rubric, then we are not providing detailed feedback. So it is more useful for summative assessment at the end of the semester, when our purpose is to mainly evaluate, not provide the detailed feedback. Also, this can be used when we have to assess a significant number of students. So in and the time provided for evaluation is less, then we can use this particular type of holistic rubric for assessing a large number of students in less time. Now we come to this, the most popular type of analytic rubric. So most of the time when instructors envision a rubric, so this is the probably what they are thinking of. So this is the basically type of rubric. So when we say rubric, so by default, we are referring to this type of rubric. So which is called descriptive rubric or analytic rubric. So, and it resembles to a grid. So we have a type of grid structure which has 3 key features. So here we have criteria on the leftmost side, and we have performance rating scales or performance rating levels, and then we have the performance description. So these are the 3 key elements of this type of analytic rubric. Now, what are these 3 key elements, or these are defined, or what are their significance? So let's first see the term criteria. So this criteria basically refers to the actual expectations for the assignment, or we can say the standards intended to grade the assignment. So what are different key points which we are going to assess, which are required to be demonstrated by the students? So those becomes the criteria in case of analytical rubric. And then each of these items is listed in the leftmost column, and each of the criteria is scored individually. So for example, in holistic rubric, we had 3 criteria: clarity, organization, and the grammatical errors. So we were scoring all those points via single score. But here in case of analytic rubric, all these different criteria will be scored differently, and so that we have a more detailed evaluation of the student work. And the second element is the performance rating. So this basically refers to the how did the student perform for each criteria. So on this particular performance rating scale, so we use the terms like excellent, good, or poor, so to show different levels, whether the student has performed excellently or it is in good category or poor. So we have different numbers of performance levels. So then the student work is classified in those different levels. Also, we can have points value. So instead of excellent, good, poor, we can also have a 4, 3, 2, 1 type of scaling, or even we can have marks evaluated allotted to different levels. So those all things we can include. while designing our rubric. Then this is the most important part of this analytic rubric, performance descriptions. So we have written in the leftmost column the criteria's different key points, the key requirements which we want to judge from the student, and then we have decided about the number of levels or the performance ratings, how many ratings will be there. Then becomes now we have to describe the basically in written and communication in clear language that how those performance ratings are achieved for that in reference to particular criteria. So this is the bulkiest part of the rubrics, or the most difficult part of the rubrics design by designing the rubrics. So this is the difficult part which the designers feel. So in this we describe the traits corresponding with each criterion and performance rating. So if we are using a criterion, say clarity, so then how the excellent is defined in reference to clarity, how the good is defined in reference to clarity. So all those things we need to describe in clear and simple language. And also we need to spell out how a student earns a particular performance rating for each criteria. So what should be shown by the student, what should be included in student work if student want to achieve a particular performance level with respect to a particular criteria. So all these things should be part of performance descriptions. So this is again example of that same written communication. So now say we want to discuss the evaluate that written communication using the analytic rubric. So here we can see that now those three different criteria or key points has been written separately in the leftmost column. So clarity, organization, and mechanics. So mechanics basically refers to the correctness of grammar or spelling. Organization refers to the sequencing of elements or ideas or the flow of the written communication. So then clarity is about the basically focused approach and the information provided, relevant details of the information. So this written communication can be thesis or it can be any type of written communication which is maybe submitted at the end of semester. So here we can see that there are 4 different levels has been shown. So needs improvement, developing, sufficient, above average. So same four levels which we discussed previously for holistic rubric. So levels are same, but now instead of having description of these levels, so there are first criteria, these points are written. So different criteria has been specified. So this is the first point. So where we should pay attention while developing this rubric. So now, so we can see that if we want to use this type of rubric, so for each criteria we must have such descriptions. So here we can see for clarity, with respect to clarity, now all these 4 different levels has been have been defined, and each definition, if we compare go from one end to next, so we can see that in this description there is a proper flow. So if we refer to this particular type of above average description for this clarity, so we can see that the description is the central purpose of the student work is clear and sporting ideas always are well focused. Details are relevant, enrich the work. So this is expected if we want to classify our student work into above average level with respect to clarity. Similarly, if we see, say, this developing, so we can see the description that central purpose of the student work is identified. So here, if we compare with the above average, so here it was the central purpose was a clear. Here we are saying that it is identified. So we can identify. Ideas are generally focused. So here we were writing that ideas are always well focused. And here description is that supports the thesis. But here what is written, details are relevant and enrich the work. So this way, while writing this description, we should have a flow between descriptions when we are going from one end to other end. Now, similarly, let's go to the second criteria. So second criteria was organization. So again, with respect to this criteria, we have to define all these 4 different levels which we are using. So here for organization, the description is information and ideas are presented in a logical sequence which flows naturally and is engaging to the audience. So here it is the maximum expectation. So in the average, we need to write that description which is expected maximum expectation from their student work. So then we have to write the somewhat less expectations or diluted expectations in other levels. But these should be clearly. So when we are writing different descriptions, so we are using different descriptions. So there should be clarity among different boundaries, so that students are able to get the feedback. There is a transparency in evaluation when that type of rubrics is used for the evaluation. Similarly, we'll have the descriptions for the third criteria. So third criteria was mechanics. So in above average category, so we have written that there is no more than 2 misspelled words or grammatical errors in the document. Similarly, for sufficient, it is written that there are no more than 3 misspelling. Here, there is no more than 4 misspelling. So in that way, correctness of grammar is described for different levels. So now if we again consider evaluation by this type of rubrics, so now each criteria is evaluated differently and student work is graded accordingly. So for example, as we talk about the limitation of the holistic rubric, that student writing grammatically is okay, but student writing was not that perfect in other criteria. But if we are using holistic rubric, then there will be some type of confusion in the mind of evaluator whether to classify in a particular grade or in less grade. So, but here that type of problem will not be there. So, because each criteria is evaluated differently. So, if there is grammar is okay, then we'll give maximum marks or the maximum rating in grammar. If it is lacking in some, say, flow, then that criteria may get less score. So that way, this type of rubric will help the evaluator to mark more transparently and more detailed way. And when that that evaluation is given to the student, so student will also come to know in the areas of strengths and weaknesses, and there will be more chances for the student to improve in the weaker areas. So there is another example of this type of rubric, analytic rubric. So here we can see that in addition to excellent, good, needs improvements, so there are marks are also written. So excellent can be between 8 to 10 points, 7 to 4 points. So this range is awarded to this level. Good, then needs improvement maybe between 3 and 2. So in addition to just classifying the student work in different grades, so we can also use this type of rubric for awarding marks based on different criteria. Like here we can see that there is these different criteria: response to the provided prompt, evidence from the text, quality of discussion. So a student may be scoring, say, a 10 in with respect to first criteria. He may score, say, 7 with respect to second criteria, or similarly there can be different levels of achievement with reference to different scales, and the overall then overall score will be added, and that can be awarded to the whole work depending upon the achievement of the student with respect to different criteria. So what are advantages of this type of analytic rubrics? So this provides useful feedback on areas of strength and weakness, because we are using different criteria for evaluation and different levels are there, and each criteria is evaluated separately. So it will provide a detailed feedback. It provides judgment on each criteria. So this is part of basically the first statement, with useful feedback, as each criteria is evaluated separately. So that results in useful feedback. Another important point is that criterions can be weighted to reflect the relative importance of each dimension. So we may have different criteria, and we may assign different weights to different criteria. So it is not there that all the criteria will be evaluated with equal weightage. So it is possible, very much possible in analytic rubrics, that we can have assigned weights to different criteria. So that will result in the relative importance of each dimension. So there may be, say, in the previous example which we have considered, so we have considered 3 criterions: clarity, organization, and grammatical, say, errors. So say we want to focus on the clarity, as we want to focus more on clarity, then we can give more weightage to the clarity while converting that particular clarity grades into the marks. So that type of weightage can be assigned. Another advantage is that it provides the instructor with the ability to grade objectively and consistently. So this we have, I have already explained in the starting why we should use the analytic rubric. So it is results in objectivity and consistency in the evaluation, because we are using clear-cut black and white descriptions are there, which we need to apply to the student work. So there cannot be biasedness or the subjectivity by the instructor, because the instructor has to use those descriptions, use those criteria which has been listed in the rubric. And it also gives student clear ideas about how an assignment will be graded. So if it is shared before the assignment is attempted, even after when it is the evaluated work is given back to the students, so they are having the ideas that these criteria and these descriptions have been used to evaluate their work. So this provides more usable data than holistic rubrics, providing more information on what is lacking in the poorer performance. So if we compare with the holistic rubric, so this provides more detailed evaluation, more usable data to the teachers as well as to the students. What are limitations or disadvantages of this type of analytic rubric? So this takes more time to create and use than a holistic rubric. So as we have seen for similar work, when we have used 3 criteria for 4 different levels, so we had to write 12 descriptions. So we have to write description for all levels with respect to each criteria. So that way we can compare the holistic rubric and analytic rubrics that while creation. So it takes more time when we are creating this rubric. And similarly, when we are using this holistic rubric, so instructor or evaluator has to make many decisions. So it also is a time-consuming process when we are applying this analytic rubric for the evaluation of the student work. So unless each point for each criteria is well defined, raters may not arrive at the same score. So if the descriptions are not well defined, so then their consistency may not be achieved in the evaluation by different evaluators. So this we need to take care while defining the while writing the performance descriptions for criterion. So they should be simple as well as understandable by different evaluators. Because they are so detailed, it is possible that student may not take the time to read them. So this is another limitation. So although we are saying that this type of analytic rubric provides detailed feedback, it uses different criteria to evaluate student work, and we are saying that it gives the students idea about the various expectations. So but if the rubrics is very lengthy, then students may not go through the whole rubric and they will not take time to read them. So that means the purpose will be defeated. The purpose of using rubric will be defeated if it is very lengthy type of rubric. So why this point also should be kept in mind while designing our rubric. Now there are certain other tools which are somewhat similar to the rubrics. So 2 popular tools which are also used for evaluation. So these includes checklists as well as rating scales. So checklists and rating scales are similar to the rubrics, somewhat similar, we can say cousins of the rubric. So we can use these checklists and rating scales for simple assignments when creating rubric seems a daunting task. So sometimes the evaluation, the piece of work which we want to evaluate, so that is not that critical. So we may not be interested in designing rubric or in using rubric due to say paucity of time or such things. So then we can use such other tools, checklist and rating scales. So these checklist and rating scale, these two lack the detailed performance description of a rubric. So one of the major difference between these tools and the rubrics is that detailed performance descriptions are not there in these other tools. For example, this is a checklist. So a checklist means a list of criteria along with a simple designation of yes or no. So here we have to just enter as yes or no. So we have to award marks depending on yes or no. So like for example, we want to check whether the student has completed an initial post of 200 words. So if he has done, then we have to write yes or no. Similarly, responded to at least 3 classmates, yes, no. So there is no so binary type of decision. So no description is there. So only user has to take decision depending upon the availability or non-availability of the desired parameter. So this type of checklist is useful for as a guidelines about expectations, quick way of providing grades. So this can be used for such applications where we want to just quickly have a glance of the observation. Then rating scale. So in rating scale, we can see that it is more similar to the rubric. So here we are writing those criteria. So citation may be criteria for say one piece of work which we want to evaluate. Then there are, now we can see that performance levels are also written: below expectation, meets expectation, exceed expectation. So now what we are having criteria, we are having performance levels, but we are still calling this as a rating scale. So what is the difference? So it is a less detailed analytic rubric. So we can call, because the structure is similar. So what is the missing part, or what is the major difference? So in the rating scale, we'll not have the description. So what is below expectation with respect to citation? So we'll not have description. So we'll have just provide the criteria as well as the grade, this different levels. So the evaluator has to use his own knowledge to classify the student work into different levels depending on the provided criteria. So this may be useful for formative assessment, but can be tricky for more significant assignments. So if the evaluator, the teacher, is experienced and he or she has a good command over the that particular learning task, so then it may be useful for formative assessments, but we have to take care. So then how to convert this rating scale to rubric? So the same rating scale will become rubric. So if we write description, so that this is the major difference between rating scales and rubrics. That in rubrics we have detailed descriptions for all performance levels with respect to different what we can say the criteria. Now let's go through the sequence of steps while developing the rubrics. So more of these points we have discussed in the previous slides. So here the idea is to present these points in a particular order, so that while creating rubrics we do not miss any desired point or any particular point. So these are different steps. So I will be describing these steps in little more details one by one. The first step is decide the purpose. So while evaluating, while creating the rubrics, so first thing is that we must decide the purpose of the evaluation. So for what purpose we are creating that rubrics, and whether we want to create a general rubric or a task specific rubric. So that should be decided before we take any step towards creation of the rubric. So it should be very clear that what is our overall purpose of creating that rubric. Then second step is that we need to choose a format. So with what type of rubrics is best suitable for the purpose which we have identified. So we need to identify the format. So we have discussed advantages and disadvantages of each type: holistic rubric, analytic rubric. So depending upon the purpose of the evaluation, so we need to choose the particular format, whether we want to go for holistic rubric, analytic rubric, task specific rubric, generic rubric. So all these things we need to decide at this point. Then before going for our actual rubric writing, so we should also search the literature. We should look at the models of the type of rubrics you want to create. So we should see on what different types of rubrics are available on that particular task, or a task similar to the task which we want to evaluate. So it will be helpful if we have not created a rubric before, or we are creating a rubric for a new kind of assignment. So for the beginners, it will be very helpful to see the rubrics presented by or the rubrics used by other evaluators for similar works. Now comes the actual work. So after deciding all those points, so we need to first decide what is the expectation, what are the expectations which are to be assessed. So what are the student expected to produce through that particular learning task or learning activity. So, and we have to, those expectations should be common expectations across the instructors. So it should not be that those expectations should be very instructor defined. So it should be, those assessments should be common expectations across instructors. So that means what that means. So those expectations should be achievable through that learning activity. So that we need to take care. And once we have identified those skills and abilities which we want to assess, so those basically skills or abilities or the expectations becomes the key criteria for the development of the rubrics. And these criteria, again, we have to keep in mind that these criteria should be measurable. So while deciding these skills and ability for the rubrics, so we should also be keeping in mind that we are going to basically assess or measure these different skills and abilities. So those criteria which we are driving from those skills and abilities which are expected to be shown by the students, so those should be measurable. So we should make a list of all those key criteria and those points which we want to measure. Then we should see if there is any overlap. Then we should combine to be more clear and concise. So this should be the first step while actually implementing the criteria after deciding earlier points, the type and format of the rubric. For example, we take the same example which we have discussed. So there we have discussed the rubrics for the written communication, and we use these three criteria: organization, clarity, and mechanics. So here, while developing particular rubrics, we should be very clear what do we mean by organization. So when we are saying that organization or clarity will be our one criterion which will be used for evaluation, so we should also define, we should also include what we mean by that organization. What does the organized writing look like? So these answers to these questions are also very important, and it should be part of the rubric itself, so that there is no confusion or misunderstanding of the criteria when we are actually using this or we are passing the rubrics to the students. Similarly for other criteria, so we should also, not only we have to write descriptions for different performance levels, so we should also define those criteria. So what we mean by those terms which we are writing. So these criteria become the leftmost column of the grid. So these criteria are used as the leftmost column in the structure of the rubric. And another thing is that consider what student learning outcomes will be assessed. So for the same learning activity, there may be several of the department or program outcomes that may be focused. For example, if there is a say seminar presentation, so there may be emphasis on the checking the communication skills. So what are the presentation skills of the students? Or similarly, there may be focus on how the student collected the literature for that seminar. So depending upon what learning outcomes are focused, so we need to include criterions according to that only, so that we are ultimately able to achieve the department or the program outcomes by the use of the these rubrics. Next comes the, once we have the criterion points, different those criteria, we have formed the leftmost column. Then we need to write the top row. So in the top row, we have the performance levels. So at this point, we need to take decision that how many levels of achievements possible given the expectations. So what are the expectations which we have considered? So how many different levels are there for those expectations? Then we need to decide what scale we will be using to rate the student performance. So whether we are using say 4, 3, 2, 1 or other types of scale. So we also need to decide about that. So we can use numerical categories, or we can use such descriptions like good, very good, those type of things. So number of columns is determined and the level of achievement are listed across the top row. So when we decide the different number of levels, so what we are basically determining, we are determining the number of columns of the rubric. So first leftmost column is containing the criteria points. Then the top row will contain different performance levels. So basically this will result in the different number of columns, which will be determined by deciding the number of levels. And those levels will be listed across the top row. So whether we'll assign points or how do point values equate to performance descriptions. So all these things need to be decided at this step. So if we are going to use the points, then numbers, then how those numbers, when we are describing those numbers, how those numbers are related to the criteria. So all those points we should keep in mind at this stage. So once we are clear on the criteria and on performance levels, number of performance levels and their indicators, then we go for the next level. So, okay, this slide shows some of the examples of the achievement levels which we can use. So we can use numbers, say 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So generally it is used from 1 to 6, but more commonly from 1 to 4. Or instead of numbers, we can have such descriptions: unacceptable, marginal, proficient, distinguished, beginning, developing, competent, exemplary. So basically what description should be used? So we can see that there are, for the same number of levels, so we are having different descriptions. So the chosen description should match with the work or the learning task which we are going to evaluate. So depending on for what learning task or learning activity we are designing the rubric, so we should choose these descriptions which are matching and which are easy to describe when we have to write descriptions with respect to the identified criteria. So once we have done all these columns and top row and leftmost column, then comes the actual task of writing the description. So we need to write descriptions for the criteria along each level of the achievement. So this is the major step. So after identifying criteria and levels, so we need to write the descriptions. So in this suggestion is that begin by describing the highest level of performance. So first it is helpful if we write first about the highest level of performance, then we can write, say, minimum level of the performance. So then in between levels may be described. So this is generally suggested that first write highest level, then write the minimum level, and then in between we can describe the in between levels. So various words which can be used to indicate various levels of performance. So there we need to identify those words. So what words are basically indicating various levels of performance. So in the description there are certain words which are indicating the levels of performance. So when we go from one level to next level, so we need to change those words. We need to take care of how to use those words. So here the concept can be that when we choose words, so here the flow can be from presence to absence, from complete to incomplete, so many to some to none. So such type of words can be used while writing the descriptions. If we are using specific language for the descriptor of performance levels, that will increase the chances that multiple faculty members will apply the rubrics in similar manner. So for some task specific or some the rubrics which are used for by multiple faculty members for the same communication, so if we use subject specific language, so that will be more understandable by the different faculties. At the same time, we should not use very typical language with respect to that subject. So it should not be very general. So when we are evaluating student work, so it should talk something about the language of the subject, so that multiple faculty members can understand, and there will be more consistency in the evaluation when it is used by multiple faculty members. So while creating the rubrics, we may use sample papers of high, mid, and low performance to help. So we have in our record certain students' assignments or the records which are belonging to, say, high scorers or low performers or mid performers. So we can see that what are different expectations from, say, highest performer. Similarly, what is presented by a mid performer. So that those type of papers, if we scan those papers may help in writing our different descriptions of the levels with respect to criteria. So once we have designed, we have written our rubric, we have created our rubric. So it is better to discuss the rubric with colleagues or students to check for clarity. So whether when it is provided to a colleague or to a student, whether they are able to understand. So what is their clarity in the rubric? So this should be done. Also, before you actually using the rubric, it should be tested on the pilot basis. So we should try out on a few students with several data. So different teachers should use the rubric with a few students, and then the consistency or the clarity of the rubric should be checked before actually using the rubric for evaluation of the student work. So these are the some major steps which we should follow while creating the rubric. Now comes the question of evaluating rubrics. So evaluation, first we have, in the last slide I have talked about the sharing the rubric with colleague or student or pilot testing. So that is during the development of rubrics. So once we have developed the rubric, even after use of the rubric, we should consider evaluating the rubric. So rubric, it should be itself should be evaluated. So we should determine if the most appropriate, whether it is the most appropriate tool for the assessment task. So whether the intended purpose is served by the rubric which we are using. So rubrics should also be evaluated before and after using the rubric for actual assessment of the students. So these are some of the points or the questions which we should keep in mind while evaluating rubrics. So whether does the rubric relate to the outcomes being measured? So whether answer to this question is yes or no. So we should evaluate our rubric on the basis of this. So if answer is not clearly yes, then what modifications are required? So we should do those modifications. Similarly, does it cover important criteria for student performance? So there may be some important criteria that may not be the part of the student performance evaluation. So we should consider while evaluating the rubrics whether all the points are included in while designing the rubric. And the most important point, this third point, does the top end of the rubric reflect excellence? So most of the time we use the in performance levels, we use the highest top end as the excellent or the above average or such type of descriptions are used. So while writing description, we should make sure that that description clearly reflects the excellent or the maximum expectation from students related to that work. So there should not be, description should not be diluted just to include student work in the highest average. So clearly the top end or the highest level should reflect the excellence. This should be part of the rubric. And are the criteria and scales well defined? So this should also be answered. This question should also be answered. So when we are saying criteria, for example, we are taking criteria, organization, clarity, or mechanics. So what we mean by those terms? So and what are the different scales meaning? So these points should be defined. So can the rubric be applied consistently by different scorers? So these are the important questions while evaluating the rubrics. We should evaluate our rubrics on the basis of these questions. So if answer to these questions is not positive, then we should consider revising the rubric, because the purpose of the rubric is to help the teachers or and the students to improve teaching learning process. But if itself rubrics is not proper, then we should revise the rubric and we should use proper rubric which is more suitable for that particular learning activity. So then again, there are certain points which help us using rubrics effectively. So if rubrics are prepared and available for students well before they begin work on tasks, so then it contributes to their learning as they complete the work. So this is one major point which we should keep in mind if we want to use rubrics effectively. Also, it is suggested that discuss the rubric with students in class time. So rubrics should be discussed with the student in detail. And if there is any misunderstanding or misconception, then the rubric should be refined and improved in response to that discussion. Also, provide the rubrics to the students. They should use that rubrics to assess their own work or their peers' work. So this will also help the students in better preparing about that particular learning task, and also it will help in more understanding of the rubrics by the student. It is also suggested that involve students in developing assessment rubrics. So when the rubrics are developed, so students should also be involved. Some selected set of students may be involved while writing the performance descriptions or while developing the rubrics. So this will basically encourage the students to be independent and to manage their own learning. So they will feel that they are using this, the teachers are using the same tool which they have developed for themselves. So this will result in better atmosphere. Also, another point is frame your assessment feedback to the students in terms laid out in the rubric. So if we are providing student after the evaluation by the rubrics, then feedback terminology should be same, and they should be able to clearly see where they have succeeded or performed less well in the task. So the feedback should be in line with the evaluation by the rubric. So if we keep these points in mind, so then rubrics use will be more effective. So now many times it is felt that if we are using the rubrics, then the paperwork increases or it is difficult to manage time. So then we can use some software tools for getting help. So although to discuss these tools in detail requires another lecture, so I just wanted to include this slide so that we are aware of certain options which are there if we want to use software tools for rubric assessment. So we have in Google Classroom or in those quizzes which we make in using Google. So we have the option of rubric. And similarly in Moodle, there are options of rubric. Even in Turnitin software, there is grade mark option. So these can be used for evaluation if we want to use our rubrics type of evaluation with the help of tools. Also, there is this free online tool called iRubric, which can be used to create, adapt, or share rubric.
Dear participants, there seems a power failure at the institute, so I request you to kindly be connected. Sir will be connecting back in another 3 or 4 minutes. Yes, sir. Actually, the power has gone in the institute, so that is why sir got disconnected. So we'll be connecting back. Please stay online.
Am I audible now, please?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Actually, sorry for the inconvenience. Due to power failure, I got disconnected. So I was discussing this slide that we can use Moodle or Google Classroom.
Sir, I request you to kindly share your screen again.
Okay. Now I think it is visible.
Yes, sir, it is coming up. Yes, sir.
Yes. I was describing that we can use one of these tools if we want to use software tools for creating or using rubrics. So iRubric, RubyStar, these are the tools which can be used, and or we can have these LMS, Google Classroom or Moodle, so we can use these tools for assessing with rubrics. So now I would like to share one of the rubric which we have developed for MTech seminar evaluation. So let me open this. Okay. So this rubrics which we developed in my previous college, Guru Nanak Dev Engineering College, Ludhiana. So this rubrics we used for the MTech seminar evaluation. So some of my colleagues are connected in this session also. So they might be able to recognize that it is the same rubrics which we used for MTech seminar evaluation. So in this, we can see that this rubrics was used for seminar evaluation. And this seminar evaluation was basically of 100 marks. So how we distributed these 100 marks, so we used these different assessment parameters. So we first decided that we'll have these criteria, major criteria, literature review. We allotted 15% weightage. Then we used the subject knowledge as criteria. And again, we used 15% weightage. And then we used this third criteria as presentation. So which consisted of 4 sub criteria. So here we can see in the presentation, we included speaking skills, audience interaction, visuals, and organization. And we used 32% weightage. So I was talking about that we can give weightage to different criteria. So this is an example of that particular weightage which we given to different criteria. So out of 100, we given different weightages to different criteria. And then we also focused clearly on the how the students are writing conclusions or future scope of their work, and we provided 8% weightage to that particular part. Then also in this seminar, basically MTech seminar evaluation, the students were supposed to submit reports. So after presenting this PPT presentation in front of the other class students and in front of the teachers, they have to also write a report on the seminar presentation, and they are supposed to submit that report. So we decided 15% weightage to that particular part. And as per university requirement, their attendance has to be included into the marks. So this we kept as 15% as per the instructions of the university. So same 15% weightage was given to the marks also in designing this rubric. So now this was the overall structure. Then further we then will for this literature review subject knowledge. So this is how we defined the performance level. So now you can see. So here that assessment parameter is there, criteria is there. So we use this criteria literature review, and we named this as say AP1, and under AP1 we had only one criteria, so it is written as A only. So literature, further we divided our scale into 4 levels: poor, fair, very good, excellent. And we decided that anyone who is going to get excellent level, so that student will get the max full score. So here you can see that we decided that literature review will have maximum 15 points, 15%. So 15 marks will be given to the student if the student satisfies this performance description. So these descriptions were written for these different levels. So what we mean by excellent, what we mean by very good, what we mean by fair, poor. So student were awarded depending upon their basically presentation and how they have performed on this particular assessment parameter, and accordingly we awarded the score in this last column. So whether 15, 12, 8 or 4. So in the first phase we use the fixed numbers like 15 scores, we use the marks 15, 12, 8, 4. So here we can also have variation. So if we feel that teachers are able to use the rubrics effectively, then here we can provide 13 to 15, here we can provide 9 to 12. So those type of variation can be given, but that will again include some sort of subjectivity if the teachers or evaluators are not experienced while using the rubric. So similarly, subject knowledge was also divided into excellent, very good, fair, poor, and then we again defined what we mean by the excellent, what we mean by the very good. So this way we defined all these different levels for the subject knowledge also. Then third assessment parameter, here we can see that the third presentation parameter consisted of these four sub parameters. So we have written here all those four parameters as A, B, C, D of this third parameter: speaking skills, audience interaction, visuals, organization. So here we can see the total marks for this criteria are 32. So we divided these 32 marks equally into these four sub criteria. So each criteria is of 8 marks, sub criteria is of 8 marks. So speaking skill 8 marks, audience interaction, visual, organization. So there may be some students who are good in speaking, but they are not able to prepare good PPTs or good visuals. So then the student may score 8 in here, say speaking skills, but he or she may score less in, say, visuals, very good or fair. So that way we divided our criteria into different points. But if the student is achieving this excellent description, then that student will get the maximum marks. Similarly, we defined excellent, very good, fair, poor, 4 levels for next assessment parameter, that is conclusion and future scope. And then again we evaluated the student on the basis of this parameter also. Then report was evaluated separately. Project report or the seminar report was evaluated on the basis of these descriptions. And this I wanted to show that here this is generally guideline from the university, that if attendance is between, say, 95% to 100%, then the student will get the full marks in attendance. So that way we formed this criteria as part of the rubrics, that here we are checking just attendance and we are comparing the attendance with these levels. So the student attendance level is then awarded accordingly depending upon attendance by the student. So here we attendance in this particular seminar paper, we included attendance means how many seminars was attended by that student for the other class members. So it was required that all the students should attend the class when the other students are presenting. So how many classes, how many seminars by a particular students has been attended, so that that scored the attendance. So then we evaluated the students on different criteria, sub-criteria, and we awarded a score, and finally we added the scores, and that resulted the total score by the obtained by the student. And rubric parallelly, the minimum 2 teachers were evaluating the student, and then the evaluations of the teachers were compared, and finally the final score was agreed upon. And this type of evaluation was done for each and every student of that class. So and this resulted in a very effective evaluation assessment, and students were very satisfied when they got the results based on these based on this rubrics. So this I wanted to show as a case study. Now let me again go back to the PPT. So with this, now I'm concluding this today's session with these remarks, that a rubrics is a flexible tool that can be used to measure student learning related specifically to a department's objective. So it can be designed accordingly so that we are able to achieve department's objective. It can be used to get consistent scores across all students. So consistency and a sense of objectivity will be there. So we can use the rubric effectively for consistent and objective scores. Rubrics can be used to assess almost any type of student work. So there is no limit that student has can be evaluated using rubrics for a particular task. So we can design rubric for any work. So if we are able to design a rubric, then we can use effectively. And it should be given to the students at the time of assignment, so that it is we can communicate expectations to the students. So this is helpful in this sense also that before evaluation, even after evaluation, it is used, can be used for effective feedback of the student evaluation. So then we have discussed certain design steps which we should take care while creating the rubrics. So with this, I conclude this session, and I thank all the participants for their cooperation. So any query? So now I'm open for any discussion or any question from the participant side. Is any query related to any aspect which I have discussed? So I have shown certain, I have included certain references. So any participant interested in further reading, so I will be sharing these slides through Google Classroom. So then you can go through those links and you can further get the information related to different points which I have touched during this particular session. So if there are no further queries or any point from audience side, so then I would like to thank one and all for the cooperation, and I'm going to close this session.